Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, February 27th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 186 days, the game against Michigan in 277 days, the start of spring practice in 7 days. So we are going to start a week of spring practice previews this morning. We're going to start it with 9 guys, maybe 10, might be 10 guys. I'll have to count. Anyway, 10 guys with the most to prove for the Buckeyes this spring. And really, here's how we're looking at this. These are guys who really did not play a whole heck of a lot last year, less than 100 snaps, who, have potentially another year or so to earn a spot, but really still kind of unproven commodities for Ohio State going into the spring, but something that might change by the end of the spring. So we're going to bring in one of our proven commodities. His name is Tony Gerdeman at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, I'm going to start here with a pair of linebackers, Gabe Powers and C.J. Hicks, both guys who we've heard positive things about this spring from James Laurinaitis, both guys who came in with the recruiting bona fides to make you think, okay, these are guys who are going to be starting linebackers at Ohio State at some point. This feels like a spring where they're both entering the spring with an opportunity to earn a starting job. Now we got to see them do it.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Actually doing it. And this is going to be a linebacker room where you pretty much have your middle linebacker set in Cody Simon, but they still need somebody next to him. And CJ Hicks has been the backup to Steel Chambers at that will linebacker. But to me, this is CJ Hicks, Gabe Powers. They can battle for that, or whoever is the second best linebacker will play. But yeah, third year for each guy. CJ Hicks has not redshirted. Gabe Powers has redshirted, so there's a little bit of leeway there. But for all of the hype that CJ Hicks came in with, 5-star guy, 5-star linebacker, and yet during most of his career, he never really played inside linebacker like he's been trying to do at Ohio State. So it has taken him some time. And I think what James Laurinaitis said when we talked to him a week or two ago, that he just needs to cut it loose. CJ Hicks just needs to cut it loose. Like there's too much thinking going on. And you can understand that as a young player learning a new position, but also learning a new defense. And so there's a lot being taught there, a lot being learned there, a lot of mistakes being made. But this spring, I think he'll have an opportunity to make mistakes. That was another thing that James Laurinaitis talked about. We got to give guys an opportunity to make mistakes so that they can learn from it and grow from that over the summer. And both of those guys, Gabe Powers, we heard good things about towards the end of the season. Staff really likes him. It's going to be interesting to see how those two guys attack this spring when they see an opening. And is there ownership? Is there competition? Like this, I think, is going to be a huge spring for both of those guys. And we saw last year, they could play 3 linebackers. Cody Simon played quite a bit, and James Laurinaitis said when we talked to him, he probably should have played more. So I think that's a lesson that Laurinaitis has learned, where they can play 3 guys in 2 spots and create some sort of rotation. So it's not like if one guy wins it, the other guy's completely out of the picture. There's room enough for both guys, but they have to show that they can do it this spring.
Well, and another spot where there's 2 open starting spots, officially open starting spots that have been vacated by guys headed off to the NFL is wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously, and then Julian Fleming heading off to Penn State. Also lost Xavier Johnson, who was certainly in the rotation there. So there are spots in the wide receiver rotation, but it feels like this is going to be a year when Kojo Antwi, Keon Grays, and Jaden Ballard all have a lot to prove, and those guys are sort of in different spots in their career. Ballard, it felt like maybe was on this list this time last year too, and he only played 54 snaps last season, played some in that Cotton Bowl game against Missouri. Keon Grays missed the entire season, did not play at all. He was injured, so he really did not get into the rotation at all. Kojo Antwi only played 5 snaps. This is a spot where, there's 2 open starting spots, and then there's another spot in that rotation, all open. But based on the way they recruit wide receivers, this feels like this is still a somewhat difficult path to the field for, certainly more than one of these guys.
Yeah, when you talk about one of those freshman receivers coming in and being Jeremiah Smith, all 3 of those guys that you mentioned, Keon Grays, Kojo Antwi, and Jaden Ballard, had as many catches last year for Ohio State as Jeremiah Smith did. They had none. So that was a surprising turn for Jaden Ballard, who had 8 the year before, I believe. Clearly, this is not the same passing game last year that we had become accustomed to. So that had something to do with it as well. But yeah, for some similar reasons, some different reasons, this is a huge spring for those guys. Jaden Ballard, we have seen have good springs, but then he just can't get into the rotation. The playing time never shows up. And now this is his fourth year. So you would expect if it's going to happen, it has to happen now, and it has to show this spring that he's capable of providing the kind of target, the kind of consistency that you've come to expect from Ohio State. Certainly that Brian Hartline has come to expect. He's the guy that sees it every day. With Antwi and Keon Grays, again, neither one of them had a catch. Kojo Antwi, this is his third year. He's still looking for his first catch. Keon Grays had a catch for like 2 yards as a true freshman. So the production, we've seen guys, I mention all the time, people are probably sick of it by now. Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, no catches in their first 2 years as Buckeyes. They turned out just fine. There is still plenty of time. So it's not like it's now or never. But the recruiting as it is now is much different than it was in 2016 when Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell were entering their third year. This is another level. So it's hard to expect guys who haven't done it in their first 2 years to suddenly do it in their third year because there's so much talent being brought in, especially like Carnell Tate having the freshman year that he did. Who's to say that Jeremiah Smith won't do the same thing this year? And of course, you've got other guys that you have expectations from, and some guys get recruited over. So this is a huge spring for Antwi and Keon Grays as still young guys, even though they're heading into their junior season in terms of academic calendar. But they need to show something and just prove that they can be reliable, relied upon, and that it isn't time to look beyond them.
And a lot of the guys we're talking about here are at least in their third year and maybe older. I think they all are. That feels a little bit unfair with the two guys I'm about to talk about because they're offensive linemen. So the calendar really, it's more like if you're a third year as a wide receiver, that's kind of the equivalent of being a fourth year as an offensive lineman just because of the developmental pattern. But these are also both guys who we were talking about last spring as being in the mix for a starting job potentially, and then neither of them played more than 32 snaps. So Zen Michalski and Tegra Tshabola. Zen Michalski was at one point being discussed as one of the front runners to take a starting tackle job last year, and then Tegra Tshabola was very much in the mix for some of those interior positions. And then Tshabola played 32 snaps, and Zen Michalski played 21. And this is another one where the fact that they brought in Josh Simmons last summer to be that left tackle certainly changed that picture on the offensive line a little bit. The fact that Carson Hinsman won the starting job at center, the fact that they then brought in Seth McLaughlin from Alabama at center as well, all of a sudden you've gone from last spring where there were 3 starting positions open on the offensive line and you could kind of see lots of different paths to the playing field, to this year, theoretically, you could just have your 4 returning starters plus the guy who was the starter for Alabama last year and bing, bang, boom, you're done. I don't know that that's exactly how it's going to play out, but it feels like this is a spring where there is not a real easy path to the playing field for either of these guys necessarily.
Well, and I think it's much easier for Tegra Tshabola, who could be the right guard, if that stays open and they don't move Josh Fryer there. And maybe they move Josh Fryer to right guard because Zen Michalski is ready to be a right tackle. I mean, you mentioned that we talked about them last spring. Zen Michalski left the spring as the number 1 right tackle. Josh Fryer left as the number 1 left tackle. And it's, he leaves the spring as one of the top 5 guys. He played the 9th most snaps last year among offensive linemen. Zen Michalski did. To give you an idea of how much changed from April until November. And so I think it's going to be difficult for Michalski to get into that mix even if they move Josh Fryer inside. Luke Montgomery was playing more than Zen Michalski. When I picture what happens if Fryer moves inside to guard, I picture that being Luke Montgomery or maybe even Tegra Tshabola more than Zen Michalski at this point. And it's just funny given what has changed, what has taken place in a year. So maybe this is an opportunity for Michalski to get back into that mix. Not maybe, it is an opportunity for him to get back into that mix and show that, yes, and you don't even need to be one of the top 5. Can he be the next tackle in? Can be one of those top 8 where you have a starting 5, then you have a backup guard, you have a backup center, and a backup tackle. Can he be that guy? Because, again, newsflash, long season, injuries happen. You're one snap away. And if he's that one snap away, can he handle like Max Ray did several years ago when he had never played hardly, and then he gets a spot start and does well? Or is it just, it's never going to happen for him? And so this is, again, a lot to prove for him this spring. I wonder how much last spring helps him, and you can build on that and just continue to prove yourself and prove to your coaches that I don't need to be passed by. I can be involved.
Yeah, those are going to be 2 guys who there's a pretty wide spectrum of possible outcomes for them this spring. We'll see how that goes. The last 2 guys I wanted to talk to you about, 2 guys in very different situations who ended up playing similar amounts on offense and defense. We're going to start with Bennett Christian. He's a tight end. He is someone who came out of high school with people telling you, like, this could be someone who gets on the field fairly early, physically kind of ready to play potentially the tight end position at the college level. And then he missed the entire 2023 season due to a failed drug test. So now, Tony, he comes out. He's missed the whole spring. He stuck with it. He was around all year. Didn't mope, didn't quit, he stuck it out. Now he's back. So this feels like an opportunity to see, if he was close to the playing field potentially a couple of years ago, where is he now? Because now all of a sudden you're no longer the new guy, and that tight end room has some real talent in it.
Yeah, they brought in somebody who is as old as you out of the portal, and Will Kacmarek out of Ohio, who is now going into his 4th year, with 2 years of eligibility remaining. So I think he's 1 year older than Bennett Christian. But you've got Jelani Thurman, who you're going to be hard pressed to move past him without playing last year. So is he like the number 4 guy right now in terms of Bennett Christian? Now, I do think there's plenty of opportunity for playing time in the spring, because you're going to be playing a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends at the same time. And so you run 2 tight ends on one play, and they run for a little while, and then you bring in 2 more tight ends. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for a bunch of these guys, especially as they do some goal line things and some issues like that. But again, yeah, there's not a lot of snaps for the 4th guy, especially when you like your 3 guys. So this is a big spring to show that he is tight end, NFL tight end size. He's 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260 pounds. If he can be the best blocking tight end, there's going to be a role for him. And I think now some guys buy into, like, I'm just going to be a long snapper. I'm going to be the best thing I can do. I'm going to be the best long snapper. I'm just going to focus on that. If he gets it into his mind, I am going to be the best blocking tight end on the team, there's going to be an opportunity for him.
Yeah, they need a blocking tight end, at least 1, maybe 2. There is an opportunity there, and with Cade Stover going, there's a lot of snaps going. I do need to shout out Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. I've just been cribbing his snap count notes. I feel like it's implied at this point. If we're talking about snap counts, we're stealing Dan Hope's work from 11 Warriors. He does great work. Appreciate everything that Dan does there. Dan has Lorenzo Styles Jr. with exactly 3 snaps on defense last year. Now, he is a 4th-year player. Normally, when you see a 4th-year player who really functionally does not play on his side of the ball, you think, well, okay, obviously it's just never going to happen. With Lorenzo Styles Jr., though, well, there's a little bit of context there, where he started his college career as a wide receiver for a couple of years, so was still pretty much brand new to the cornerback position last year. Took a redshirt season last year. He played some on special teams. You saw him as sort of a punt gunner at times, and then you saw him on defense very, very sparingly. This is one, Tony, where they don't need him. They have plenty of depth at that corner position, but it feels like, okay, now you've had a year. He is maybe one of the people I'm most intrigued to see. Okay, where is this right now after a year with Ohio State and working as a corner?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, because right now I would view Jermaine Matthews, a sophomore, as the next guy in behind Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun if we're leaving Jordan Hancock in the slot. And Jermaine Matthews is very, very good. Can Lorenzo Styles, can he be that fourth guy ahead of Calvin Simpson-Hunt? And can he push to be that third guy? Or can he find a role as the Jordan Hancock's backup? You know, what kind of role and representation can he have on this defense? Because last year was a learning experience. So this spring will be an opportunity for him to show what he's learned and to continue to learn more, obviously. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because, like you said, they don't necessarily need him, but how many injuries have we seen at cornerback over the last 3 or 4 years? Now they did pretty good last year, but you still saw Jermaine Matthews have to be thrown into action as a starter. So I won't be shocked. Again, long season. And I will also not be surprised to see some load management go on this year for a number of positions where it's like, oh, it's a surprise hamstring injury is going to keep somebody out for a game. Don't worry, it's just precautionary. A lot of spring game type of thing. Like, we just didn't want to risk it. We saw that last year, and I think we're going to continue to see it. So that fourth corner may start a game or two this year just because. So yeah, very interested to see what he can do. Obviously, they love his athleticism. Ohio State wanted him as a corner way back when, so they got him now. Tim Walton, obviously a very good teacher. I do wonder just how ready he is. I don't think they need him to be super ready this year, but next year, there's going to be an opening, 2 openings basically at corner and a third at nickel when everybody leaves for the NFL. So get your foot in the door right now, I would say, to Lorenzo Styles Jr.
For sure, yeah, definitely an opportunity, and you're going to get good work going up against some very talented wide receivers in practice as well, and probably a little bit of a revamped Ohio State passing game and a little bit of a revamped Ohio State offense. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to watch this spring. So much so that we have 6 more days of pre-spring talk on the show. There is a ton to talk about this spring. The best place to talk about all of it is at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. There's some stuff to talk about on that front as well. We've got a whole team of X's and O's gurus breaking down the new offense, breaking down the tweaks to the defense this year in year 3 of the Jim Knowles defense, and much more. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Also, just want to give you a heads up. Coming up this Thursday, Tony and I will be having the 1,000th episode of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Yes, 1,000. That is a lot. We know. We were there for all of them. You can join us there at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We'll be there on Thursday at some point. It's, we've done 1,000 of these. We still don't plan anything, so we don't know what time. So the best way to make sure you are there for it as well is to make sure you are subscribed at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle and you hit that bell to get notified when we go live. Should be fun. We're looking forward to it. Hope you guys are as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.